The car crash left her in a completely unresponsive vegetative state. I spent everything I had to steal her from the morgue. I hid her in a basement at -10 degrees Celsius. On Lunar New Year's Eve, the heat went out. Her body temperature dropped to freezing. To save her, I stripped naked and held her tight against me. Just when I thought we would freeze to death together, the body in my arms, rigid for 3 years, suddenly trembled. Her icy fingers wrote 2 words across my back. Run. -15 degrees Celsius. Someone had cut the basement power. In the darkness, I touched Susu's face. It felt like raw meat fresh from a freezer. Susu. I slapped her cheek. No response. Panic seized me. I grabbed the broken thermometer from the table and tucked it under her arm. Using the last of my phone's battery, I saw the mercury stuck at 34 degrees Celsius. Hypothermia. The doctor had warned me. For a vegetative patient in severe catatonia like her, once hypothermia set in, her heart could stop at any moment. I grabbed the only 2 ragged quilts on the bed and wrapped them around her. It was useless. She was barely breathing. Her lips had the bluish purple of a corpse. Either way, she would die. I bit my lip until it bled, then tore off my sweater and coat. I lifted the covers and climbed in. The instant our skin touched, a shudder of cold ran through me. She was practically an ice sculpture. I did not care. I locked both arms around her waist, pulling her whole body into my embrace. I pressed my burning chest to her heart. Susu, you cannot die. I pressed my lips to her ear and ground out the words. I took on 3 million yuan in loan shark debt to steal you out of there. If you dare die, I will haunt you day and night, even as a ghost. 1 second, 2 seconds. The woman in my arms stayed rigid. I closed my eyes in despair. My tears fell into the hollow of her neck and instantly froze into crystals. Then suddenly, I felt the faintest touch on my back. My eyes flew open. A hand, a skeletal hand that had not moved in 3 years. It was clutching the fabric of my shirt. I froze. I barely dared breathe. Then, a drop of warm liquid slid down my neck. I looked down. By the faint snow light through the window, I met a pair of eyes. Susu's eyes were open. Tears streamed wildly from the corners of her eyes. She looked at me. There was none of a vegetative patient's emptiness in her gaze, only piercing pain and awareness. She had been conscious all along. For 3 years, she had been trapped inside this living corpse of a body, hearing and seeing everything outside. Susu, I said, my voice shaking beyond control. I reached for her face, but she used all her strength to turn away, avoiding my hand. The next second, the fingers clutching my shirt began to move. 1 horizontal stroke, 1 vertical stroke, 1 slanting stroke. She was riding on my back. Her movements were painfully slow. With every stroke, she had to gasp for a long time. Hurry, go. After writing those 2 words, her hand dropped heavily onto the bed frame. Unable to rise again, she stared at me desperately. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her gaze was full of pleading. Then I realized the circuit breaker had not tripped by accident. Someone had cut it. They had found us. Bang! A thunderous crash came from overhead. Someone kicked the basement's iron door hard. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Lin Fan, get your ass out here. I know you are hiding that bitch in there. It was Susu's younger brother. Yu's voice. My blood turned to ice. 3 years ago, Susu's car crash had been Yu's doing. To seize control of the Bai family, he bribed doctors to declare Susu brain dead, planning to send her straight to the crematorium. It was me, a lowly driver, not even worthy to shine her shoes. I stormed into the hospital carrying a can of gasoline and forced them to hand her over. The pounding grew louder. The chain on the iron door groaned under the strain. Susu breathed frantically. Her throat rasped like a broken bellows. She desperately slammed her head against the bed frame, telling me to run. My eyes stung and swelled with tears. I pressed her head still and pulled her back into my arms. I am not leaving. I grabbed the quilt, wrapping her tightly in it. I did not leave 3 years ago. I will not leave today either. I pulled a rusty boning knife from beneath the pillow and gripped it tight. Yu sneered outside the door. Not coming out. Fine. Pour the gasoline. It is Lunar New Year's Eve. I will send you to filthy lovers straight to heaven in a blaze of fireworks. The stinging reek of gasoline seeped through the crack beneath the door. The gasoline smell grew stronger. The plea in Susu's eyes turned to despair. She suddenly opened her mouth and viciously bit down on her tongue. She wanted to kill herself, so she would not drag me down with her. Are you crazy? My eyes nearly split with rage. I seized her jaw and shoved my fingers into her mouth. Her sharp teeth instantly pierced my fingers. The taste of blood spread between our lips and teeth. She bit down so hard, yet her tears came even harder. Do not be afraid. With my bloodied hand, I wiped away her tears, then kissed her cold forehead. I told you, if we die, We die together. Boom. The basement's iron door was finally smashed open. Several blinding flashlight beams swept inside. They were too bright for me to open my eyes. Several bodyguards in black suits rushed in. They yanked me off the bed. I struggled desperately, swinging the boning knife, but a club struck the back of my head. My vision went black. I crashed hard onto the concrete floor. A pair of custom leather shoes stepped on my face. Bayu crouched down, staring at me in disgust. A worthless dog like you dares touch my sister. He sneered. He pressed down harder, grinding my cheekbone beneath his shoe. My face was covered in blood. I stared desperately at Susu on the bed. A bodyguard roughly threw back the quilt. Like a rag doll, Susu was exposed to the freezing air. Her eyes were wide open, locked on Bayu. Harsh gasps tore from her throat. Well, you are not dead yet. Bayu stood up and walked to the bed. He took a syringe from his pocket. It held a clear liquid, potassium chloride. Inject it, and her heart stops. Even the coroner will find nothing wrong. Bayu casually flicked the syringe. Sis, you've held the Bai family in your grip for years. It is time you made room for me. He grabbed Suju's arm. The needle hovered over her vein. You bastard. Do not touch her. I roared like a madman. I opened my mouth and clamped my teeth around the ankle of the bodyguard pinning me down. The bodyguard screamed. He kicked me in the ribs. Crack. The sound of a breaking rib rang out. Pain curled me into a ball. I spat out a mouthful of blood. Bayu glanced back at me and smiled mockingly. Lin Fan, do you know why I waited until today to find you? He pulled a document from his jacket and threw it in my face. By group equity transfer agreement, free of charge. Over the past 3 years, I worked hard to forge her signature and fingerprint. Now all the paperwork is complete. With her alive, she is a liability. Bayu pierced Suju's skin with the needle. My eyes burned with fury. I watched that deadly liquid about to enter her bloodstream. At that critical moment, Susu, pinned to the bed, suddenly stopped struggling. Her fear-clouded eyes suddenly focused and locked onto Bayu. Then, before everyone's horrified eyes, this woman, paralyzed for 3 years and diagnosed as a severely catatonic vegetative patient, sat bolt upright in bed. She seized the wrist holding Bayu's syringe. There was a sharp crack. Bayu squealed like a pig being slaughtered. My hand. Bayu's screams echoed through the cramped basement. His wrist had been snapped cleanly. The syringe fell to the floor and shattered. The bodyguards were dumbstruck. They stared at Susu on the bed as if she were a monster. I froze too, forgetting even the agony in my ribs. Susu did not look at anyone. Slowly, stiffly, she turned her head. Her gaze fell on my bloodied face. In that instant, the frost in her eyes melted away, replaced by overwhelming killing intent and pain. She ripped the still bleeding IV cannula from the back of her hand and rose unsteadily. After 3 years off her feet, her legs were as thin as dead branches. The moment they touched the floor, she pitched forward. I did not know where I found the strength. I shoved the bodyguard off me and lunged forward to catch her. She collapsed into my arms. She was so light, like a feather. Susu. I held her tightly, my voice hoarse beyond recognition. She leaned against my shoulder, gasping for air. Then, she raised the hand that had broken Bayu's wrist and gently touched the blood on my face. Lin Fan, she spoke. Her voice was rough and hoarse, like sandpaper scraping glass. Yet everyone heard it clearly. You fool. My tears burst free. For 3 years, I had spoken to her every day, waiting for this answer. Sis, you are not paralyzed. Bayu clutched his broken wrist and staggered backward. His face was white as paper. Susu slowly turned around. She leaned against me, her eyes as cold as a demon crawling out of hell. Bayu. She stared at her own younger brother, enunciating every word. Failing to kill me in that crash was the biggest mistake of your life. Get them. Kill them. Bayu panicked completely. He screamed hysterically at the bodyguards. The 4 bodyguards snapped out of their shock. They pulled out batons and charged us. I instinctively tried to shield Susu behind me, but she suddenly reached out and took the rusty boning knife from my hand. The next second, like a leopardess that had lain in wait for years, she sprang forward. Her movements were stiff, but utterly ruthless. A wet, tearing sound. A bodyguard screamed and fell. Susu used the momentum to pull out the knife, then swung the handle into another bodyguard's temple. In barely a dozen seconds, all 4 powerful bodyguards lay in pools of blood. Amid their groans, Susu stood motionless. Her chest heaved violently. Her strength was utterly spent. The hand gripping the knife shook like a leaf. Don't come any closer. Bayu had wet himself. He scrambled toward the door. Susu did not pursue him. She suddenly turned around, threw away the knife, and stumbled into my arms. Lin Fan, go. She grabbed my arm, her voice urgent. The drug only lasts 10 minutes. I jolted. The drug? I stared at her in shock. Suju's face had changed from its earlier sickly pallor to a strange flush. Her pupils began to lose focus. Her body convulsed uncontrollably. What drug? Susu, what is wrong? I pulled her into my arms. My heart sank to the depths. Adrenaline. I just bit through the capsule hidden beneath my tongue. She clutched my collar so tightly her nails nearly sank into my flesh. Each word came with a ragged breath. Go. He has people outside too. A loud buzz rang through my head. 3 years ago, before her car crash, she had been the Bi group's most forceful and decisive leader. How could she not have a backup plan? She had made herself appear vegetative, even hiding a lethal drug beneath her tongue to unlock her body's hidden strength, all for a sliver of hope in the worst of times. And for 3 years, she never used it, because she knew that once she did, she would be burning away what remained of her life. Today, to save me, she used it. Stop talking. I am getting you out of here. Fighting through the agony of my broken rib, I swung her onto my back. She was so light it broke my heart. I stepped over blood and groaning bodyguards and charged out of the basement. Outside, on Lunar New Year's Eve, snow fell in thick swirls. Brilliant fireworks bloomed across the distant sky. With Susu on my back, I ran through ankle-deep snow. The biting wind slashed my face like knives, but all I felt was the heat growing behind me. Susu's temperature was soaring. It was a sign of the drug's backlash. Lin Fan. She lay across my back, her voice so weak the wind and snow nearly swallowed it. I'm here. Susu, don't fall asleep. We're going to the hospital. We're almost there. I clenched my teeth, tears and blood running down my face. Don't go to the hospital. Her icy fingers gently stroked my cheek. The Bai family will find us. Then, where do we go? Anywhere. As long as you live. I was close to breaking down. Go see the river. I stopped short. I ground my teeth, hitched her higher on my back, and ran for the bridge to kilometers away. The snow fell harder and harder, slicing my face like blades. The woman on my back was like a furnace, scorching hot. It was heat bought by burning through her life force. The river wind drove ice shards into my throat. I coughed up bloody spit and finally climbed the riverbank. The New Year's bells rang. Fireworks burst across the sky. Multicolored light illuminated by Susu's deathly pale face. She rested in my arms, her eyes half open. Susu, look. The fireworks. I wiped snowmelt from her face, my voice shaking badly. She forced an ugly smile, her fingers fumbling for the edge of my clothes. Lin Fan, she panted, every word tasting of blood. 3 years ago, someone tampered with the car. The brakes failed. I froze. An invisible hand squeezed my heart tight. I noticed it long ago. She began coughing, black blood seeping from her mouth. Then why didn't you tell me? My eyes burned red, and a beast-like growl rose from my throat. Because you were in the passenger seat. She looked into my eyes. Before we hit the guardrail, I turned the wheel and turned the driver's side toward the barrier. Boom! Something inside my mind exploded. That crash 3 years ago. I was completely unharmed. While she fell into a deep coma, I had always thought fate was mocking us. But she had traded her life for mine. You're insane. Why would you do that? I roared, tears pouring freely. Fool. She raised her hand and wiped away my tears. I owe you. No, you don't owe me anything. I held her tightly, wishing I could fold her into my very bones and blood. She shook her head. Her breathing grew weaker. With difficulty, she lifted her trembling hand. Her fingers searched at her collar. Her nail tore the skin of her neck. She pulled hard, and buttons scattered over the snow. She lowered her head, biting down on a red cord hidden against her skin. Then she yanked it free. A blood-stained brass key fell out. She spat the key into her palm and pressed it into my hand. Locker 37, basement level 2. Jiangcheng railway station. Inside are Bayou's money laundering records and the trust fund I left for you. Take it and go far away. I hurled the key into the snow. I don't want money. I only want you alive. Like a madman, I tore open her clothes, trying to cool her with the freezing wind. It was useless. Her skin was terrifyingly hot. Her pulse raced as if it would burst from her chest. Cough, cough. She broke into violent coughing. Mouthful after mouthful of black blood sprayed over the snow. The sight was horrifying. Listen to me. She gripped my wrist tightly, her nails digging into my flesh. Live, and watch you go to hell for me. Suddenly, blinding headlights tore through the night. Several black SUVs charged up the riverbank like beasts. Shrieking brakes split the night sky. Woof woof. Ferocious barking mixed with chaotic footsteps. As they closed in, find them by following the blood trail. They can't have gone far. But you shouted furiously. Get that bitch. I want her corpse if she's dead. Every hair on my body stood on end. I snatched up the bony knife from the ground. Susu, don't be afraid. I shielded her behind me. I'll kill them. I gritted my teeth, my eyes filled with murderous intent. Even if I die, I'll take you down with me. Susu suddenly convulsed violently. With the last of her strength, she slammed into my back. Caught off guard, my feet slipped, and I tumbled down the riverbank. Below the embankment was an abandoned sewage tunnel, overgrown with weeds and reeking of filth. I crashed into the foul mud. Piercing agony ripped through my broken ribs. I struggled to climb back up, but Susu's gut-wrenching cough came from above. She was deliberately making noise. Over there. Hurry. Flashlight beams instantly converged on the riverbank's edge. Don't come closer. Desperation station filled by Suju's voice. She was drawing their attention away. Susu. My eyes bulged with rage. Just as I was about to shout, I shoved my mud-caked hand into my mouth. It was my own hand. I bit down hard on the back of my hand, swallowing that desperate roar. I couldn't make a sound, or she would have died for nothing. I lay in the stinking mud, peering through gaps in the weeds, staring upward. Several bodyguards rushed over. Bayou kicked Susu hard in the stomach. Run. Go on. Fucking run. Bayou's face twisted viciously. Susu rolled through the snow like a rag doll. She did not cry out once. She lay quietly in the snow, her eyes fixed on the tunnel. She was looking at me. In her gaze, there was longing and resolve. Where's that bastard? Bayou grabbed her by the hair and lifted her off the ground. Susu spat out bloody phlegm, splattering Bayou's face. He jumped into the river. She smiled, a bitter, piercing smile. Damn it. Bayou wiped the blood from his face and backhanded her. Search for him. Bring him to me alive, or bring me his body. The bodyguards searched along the river with flashlights. Their beams swept past the tunnel entrance several times. I held my breath, pressing myself flat against the mud. Filthy water flooded my mouth, rank and foul. I swallowed it, along with my blood and tears. Boss, the river current is too strong. He was probably swept away long ago. One of the bodyguards reported. Bayou spat. Lucky bastard. Take this bitch away. He tossed Susu to the bodyguards like a bag of trash. Find somewhere deserted and bury her. The bodyguard dragged her like a sack, pulling Susu by one leg. A long blood trail streaked across the snow. Susu didn't struggle. Her arm dangled limply against the ground, lifeless. I watched helplessly as they stuffed her into the trunk. The SUV sped away. Fireworks still bloomed across the sky. The river wind remained bitterly cold. I lay in the tunnel, shaking all over. Not from the cold, but from hatred. I stopped biting my bloodied hand and opened my palm. The bloody brass key was buried deep in my flesh. I pulled out the key and clenched it. My knuckles turned white. Blood dripped between my fingers into the foul mud. Bayou. I murmured his name, grinding every syllable between my teeth, using the moss-covered wall for support. I slowly stood, my broken ribs grated against flesh, the pain reaching deep into my bones. I didn't stop. Step by step, I crawled out of the tunnel. The bloodstains in the snow were nearly covered by the wind and snow. I hid the key against my body and picked up the bony knife. Neon lights from across the river reflected off its blade. I turned and walked into the endless night. The wind and snow grew heavier. Bone-chilling cold shot from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head. I removed the only shirt I had left and tore it into strips. Round after round, I bound my broken ribs tightly. With every wrap, the pain doubled. Cold sweat mixed with river water and streamed down my body. I bit down on the back of the bony knife to keep myself from making a sound. Once the wound was bound, I spat out the knife. When the cold wind blew, the scab on my chest split open. I didn't care. My mind held only the image of Susu being dragged away, and the blood trail left across the snow. It became a cursed brand burned onto my retina. Jiangcheng Railway Station, Level B2. Locker number 37. Suju's weak voice echoed in my ears. I clenched the brass key in my pocket. Its sharp edges pierced my palm. This was the bargaining chip she had bought with her life. I trudged through snow deep enough to cover my ankles, moving through the shadows along the riverbank. I couldn't take the main road. Bayou's men were surely still patrolling nearby. Sirens sounded in the distance. On New Year's Eve, Jiangcheng was a tangled web of revelry and crime. I was like a rat crawling through a filthy gutter, avoiding every surveillance camera. 3 hours later, I stood in the unfinished building across from Jiangcheng Railway Station. Dawn was approaching. The station's electronic clock flickered with red digits. 4:30 in the morning. A few homeless people shivered beneath tattered blankets in the square. I leaned against a concrete pillar, breathing heavily. Blood loss made my vision repeatedly go black. I scooped up a handful of dirty snow and stuffed it into my mouth. Freezing snowmelt slid down my throat, jolting my nearly numb nerves awake. I watched the station entrance. Several black sedans were parked at the edge of the square. Someone was smoking inside one of them. The flickering embers stood out sharply in the darkness. Bayou's men. They moved fast. When Susu handed me the key, Bayou must have heard the commotion. He guessed Susu had prepared a backup plan and sent men to seal off the station. I touched the strips wrapped around my ribs. They were completely soaked with blood. Forcing my way in would mean certain death. I closed my eyes and forced myself to calm down. Susu had hidden something so important in the station. She hadn't chosen the location at random. Level B2. It was the oldest section of Jiangcheng Railway Station, connected to abandoned underground air raid shelters. I opened my eyes and fixed my gaze on a ventilation shaft beside the station. 3 years ago, when I was still a low-level street thug, I often fought others for territory in that area. That ventilation shaft led straight to a storage room on Level B2. I tucked the bony knife into the small of my back and climbed over the unfinished building's wall. Then I slipped along the green belt like a shadow. The snow stopped. Snow crunched beneath my feet. I slowed my pace. Every step made my heart pound. 10 meters from the ventilation shaft, 2 men in black suits were urinating beside it. Damn it, making us freeze out here on New Year's. Quit complaining. The boss gave his orders. Don't let even a fly get inside. That kid is seriously wounded. He probably died in some ditch already. I hid behind a trash bin and tightened my grip on the knife. The 2 men pulled up their pants and turned to leave. I would get only one chance. I launched myself with both legs and sprang out like a leopard. My left hand clamped over the mouth of the man in back, while my right hand held the bony knife in reverse. A wet, tearing sound. The blade sank precisely between his shoulder blades. Not a sound escaped. The man in front sensed something was wrong and had just begun to turn when I pulled out the knife and kicked the corpse behind the knee. The body pitched forward and crashed into the man ahead. The 2 men tumbled together. I lunged after them and pinned the man's throat beneath my knee. The knife tip pressed against his eyeball. Die. I lowered my voice, my eyes devoid of any human warmth. The man trembled in terror and nodded frantically. Where did you take by Susu? I pressed harder with my wrist. The knife tip pierced his eyelid. Blood ran into his eye. I don't know. The boss took her away himself, he said, his voice trembling like a leaf. Where did he take her? I applied more pressure. The abandoned chemical plant in the western suburbs. The boss said he'd handle her personally. I sucked in a sharp breath. The chemical plant in the western suburbs. That was the place Bai-Yu used to handle his dirty business. If Bai Susu had ended up there, her chances of survival were slim. Please spare me, the man begged, expressionless. I pulled out the knife. The blade cut through his carotid artery. Blood gushed out and splashed across my face. I stood up and wiped the blood from my face. I dragged both bodies into the shadows behind the trash bin. I removed the ventilation shaft slats and crawled inside. The duct reeked of dust and rat droppings. I pushed forward with alternating elbows and knees. As I crawled through the narrow duct, my broken ribs scraped against the metal. The pain brought me out in a cold sweat. I clenched my teeth and endured it. I didn't know how long I had crawled before a faint light appeared below. I looked down through the grate. It was the storage room on level B2. No one was there. I kicked the grate open and jumped down. The moment I landed, my legs gave out and I dropped to my knees. I used the wall to pull myself up and pushed open the storage room door. Level B2 was lined with rows of battered lockers. The lighting was dim and the air was damp. I followed the numbers along the row. 25, 26, number 37. There it was. The locker door was covered in rust. I pulled out the bloodstained brass key. My trembling hand couldn't line it up with the keyhole. Lin Fan, stay alive. Bai Suju's voice echoed in my ears again. I took a deep breath and steadied my wrist. Click. The lock opened. I pulled open the locker door. Inside was a black waterproof bag. I unzipped it. A thick file lay on top. Anomalous transaction report and money laundering evidence for the Bai Group. Every page bore the company seal and Bai-Yu's signature. The evidence was irrefutable. Beneath the file was a black bank card. A note was tucked beneath it. The handwriting was delicate. It was Bai Suju's. The password is your birthday. Leave Jiangcheng. Forget me. I gripped the note, my knuckles cracking with the pressure. Forget? How could I forget? She pulled me out of the mud and gave me back my dignity. Then, to save me, she put herself into a vegetative state. And now, she was even willing to sacrifice her life just to give me a chance to live. I shoved the note into my mouth and swallowed it. Then I slung the waterproof bag over my shoulder. Bai-Yu, you want me to leave? Dream on. I found a rusty iron bar in the storage room and tested its weight. Then I turned toward the stairwell. The chemical plant in the western suburbs. I'm coming. Even if I have to cross a mountain of blades or sea of fire, I'll drag you to hell with me. I pushed open the emergency door on level B2. Outside the door, more than a dozen men stood in a solid wall. Everyone wore a black suit and carried machetes or steel pipes. Leading them was Bai-Yu's trusted lieutenant, Baldy. He spat out the toothpick in his mouth and gave a cold laugh. Kid, the boss was right. You really did come for the package. Hand it over, and I'll leave your body intact. Baldy tapped his steel pipe, making a harsh metallic clang. I looked at them and slowly tore away the strips wrapped around my body. My broken ribs were exposed to the air. I raised the iron bar and pointed it at Baldy. Blood still dripped from the blade. Anyone who stands in my way dies. That night, at Jiangcheng railway station, blood ran like a river. With the iron bar in my hands, I smashed every tooth in Baldy's mouth. Taking more than a dozen slashes, I forced open the level B ventilation shaft and plunged headfirst into the surging Yangtze. River water flooded my lungs. A abandoned rebar on the riverbed tore open the left side of my face. My left leg smashed into a bridge pier and suffered a comminuted fracture. I didn't die. The king of hell wouldn't take me. He made me stay behind to claim lives. 3 years later, in Jiangcheng Central Business District, at the Bai Group headquarters, 100 meters above the ground, the gale howled. I tightened my safety line with a window squeegee in hand. Below me yawned an abyss of rushing traffic. A cheap metal plate reinforced my left leg. Every movement sent piercing pain through me. Ugly centipede-like scars covered half my face. Now, I am called ugly. A mute, crippled window cleaner who worked at great heights. A faint crackle came through my earpiece. Brother Fan, I found it. My informant, Rat, spoke in my ear. The old dog Bayou's remaining men bribed one of the convoy drivers. They're making their move this afternoon. I wiped the condensation from the glass. Route, time. I lowered my voice. 3 o'clock this afternoon. The southern overpass entrance. A dump truck. Rat spoke at lightning speed. Make sure none of them comes back. I forced out a few words. Understood. The brothers have already set the trap. Another voice cut into my earpiece. It was the informant called Old Ghost. Brother Fan, the Western District's turf. Bayou's men are trying to interfere. Cut off the leader's hand and leave it at the Bai Elder's doorstep. I ordered coldly. 3 years ago, the trust fund Susu left me remained untouched. I converted every penny into a covert stream of funds and poured it into Jiangcheng's underground markets. Over 3 years, in the darkest corners of the city, I wove an all-encompassing intelligence network across the city. I wasn't a kingpin. I didn't deal in legitimate business. I was only Bai Suju's shadow, clearing away every venomous snake hiding in the dark. The squeegee pushed away the last patch of water. The bulletproof glass before me became clear. The CEO's office. Bai Susu sat behind a broad mahogany desk, wearing a perfectly tailored black couture suit. Her short hair was sleek. She had survived. Not only had she lived, she had ruthlessly purged the Bai family and become the iron-fisted queen feared throughout Jiangcheng's business world. But I could see the dark circles beneath her eyes and the tension in her back. Several Bai family elders sat across from her, slamming their hands on the desk. Through the glass, I couldn't hear them, but I could read the furious words on the balding old man's lips. Bai Susu, don't get too arrogant. The Bai family doesn't belong to you alone. Bai Susu showed no expression. She picked up the teacup on the desk and smashed it at the old man's feet. Her lips parted slightly. Get out. The elders stormed out, slamming the door behind them. The office fell silent. She leaned back in her chair, and her shoulders sagged at once. She raised a hand and vigorously massaged her temples, revealing an exhaustion she could no longer hide. I hung outside the window and extended a hand in a rough work glove. Through the cold bulletproof glass, I traced her silhouette in the air. 3 years, more than 1,000 days and nights. She was clearly within reach, yet an uncrossable sea of people stood between us. This was the only way. I could see her every day. At 2:50 in the afternoon, Bai Suju's convoy emerged from the underground garage. 3 black bulletproof Maybachs gleamed coldly beneath the blazing sun. I gripped the main rope and rappelled rapidly down the building's outer wall. As I hovered at the 3rd floor level, Rat's voice suddenly rose in my earpiece, a hoarse, distorted scream. Brother Fan, something's happened. Hackers have cut the traffic light system. The dump truck started ahead of schedule and is heading straight for the building's main entrance. I looked down sharply. A heavy dump truck loaded with I-beams charged like a raging beast, ignoring the barriers as it accelerated wildly, straight toward the 2nd Maybach, whereby Susu was riding. Susu. My eyes bulged with fury. A beast-like growl rumbled from my throat. There wasn't enough time. The guard's car was trapped in the inner lane. Boom. A deafening crash rang out. The dump truck slammed into the Maybach's front end. The 2-ton armored car spun in place from the force. The dump truck toppled onto its side. The steel cable securing its load snapped. Tons of I-beams poured down like torrential rain. One of the thickest beams, carrying terrifying momentum, hurtled straight toward the Maybach's rear passenger window. Without half a second's hesitation, I yanked open the safety buckle's lock and kicked hard against the building's glass wall. My whole body shot forward like a fired cannonball. Clinging to the main rope, I swung outward. The wind screamed against my eardrums. Gravity dragged at my insides. The rope, 100 meters above the ground, traced a heart-stopping arc. I stared fixedly at the falling beam. Closer. I released the squeegee and spread both hands in midair. I threw my weight forward and used my crippled leg, fitted with a steel plate, to kick violently against the protruding 2nd-floor billboard. Using the brutal recoil, I changed my trajectory and slammed straight into the deadly beam. Squelch. The nauseating sound of steel tearing into flesh came as the beam's sharp edge passed straight through my right shoulder. Flesh tore apart. My shoulder blade shattered. Agony engulfed me like a tsunami. I clenched my back teeth until they nearly shattered as I clung to the beam with both hands. With every ounce of strength I used my flesh and blood to divert its fall. When the beam grazed the Maybach's rear window and crashed into the ground, sparks flew in every direction. The asphalt was blasted into a deep crater. The armored glass gave a dull thud as a web of cracks spread across it. I lost my balance and crashed onto the hood, which was covered in glass shards. Then I rolled to the edge of the window. Blood gushed down my arm and instantly stained the window red. The world seemed to freeze in that moment. Inside the car, Bai Susu was pinned beneath 2 bodyguards. She shoved them away and raised her head through the shattered armored glass. Her eyes met mine. I wore a filthy face mask. The exposed half of my face was covered in ugly scars. My hair was soaked with sweat and blood and plastered to my forehead. But these eyes, the eyes she had watched for 3 years, I saw her pupils contract sharply. The mask of icy indifference fingerprints. Shattered in an instant, her whole body began to tremble violently. Like a leaf in the autumn wind, she lunged toward the window and pressed her palm hard against the glass. Through the cold glass, her fingertips trembled as they traced my bleeding shoulder. Tears came crashing down. President Bai. It's dangerous. Don't get near the window. A bodyguard shouted and tried to pull her back. She fought desperately. Her eyes remained fixed on me. Her lips trembled as she silently mouthed two words. Lin Fan. The pain nearly made me pass out, but I bit down hard on my tongue. People surrounded us on all sides, screaming pedestrians, onlookers holding up their phones to record, and mixed among them were Bayou sleeper agents. Countless eyes watched the car and watched her. I couldn't acknowledge her. If we recognized each other, this useless wreck would become her weakness and a target for the vipers hiding in the shadows. I braced myself against the ground with my good left hand and struggled to stand, dragging my crippled left leg. I took a step back. I lowered my head and hunched my back, pretending to be as frightened and servile as a lowly cleaner should be. Bai Suju's hand froze against the glass. Her eyes were so red they looked ready to bleed. She understood why I had stepped back and understood my restraint. Tears welled in her eyes, but she bit down hard on her lips and forced them back. She abruptly turned away and forced herself to look elsewhere. Her back straightened again as she resumed the cold, ruthless bearing of the Bai family's leader. Drive. She coldly spat out the two words. But President Bai. The bodyguard disguised as a worker hesitated. I said drive. Drive over him if you have to. Her voice was sharp, filled with hysterical resolve. The Maybach's engine roared deafeningly. Its tires screeched against the pavement and spewed acrid white smoke. The car suddenly reversed, swerved around the wreckage, and sped away. I stood amid the ruins and watched the taillights vanish around the corner. Blood dripped from my right shoulder onto the asphalt, forming dark red flowers. It hurt badly, but inside, I felt relieved. She understood me. To stay alive, we had to act like strangers. Sirens closed in from every direction. Clutching my shoulder, I blended into the panicked crowd and tore off my blood-soaked work clothes. Then I slipped into the maze of back alleys. Rat's chilling voice came through my earpiece. Brother Fan, we've confirmed it. The dump truck driver was one of Bayou's former henchmen. He's trapped in the cab, but still alive. I leaned against a damp brick wall and gasped for breath. Take him out. Make the scene look like an accident caused by brake failure. Understood. We'll leave no trace. I ended the call, dragging my broken body. I made my way back to the urban village. Late that night, in the basement, the air reeked of mold. I took off my shirt and bit down on a ragged towel. Then I poured high-proof alcohol straight over the through wound in my right shoulder. White foam churned as my muscles convulsed violently. I picked up a needle and thread and faced the mirror. I stitched it raw. The needle pierced my skin. I thought of New Year's Eve 3 years ago. She had pressed a key into my hand and told me to leave. I thought of the train station's second underground level, wielding an iron bar. I had shattered the bones of more than a dozen men. I had nearly died there too. If I hadn't thought of her waiting for me, I wouldn't have held on long enough to jump into the river. Every needle-piercing flesh felt like being slowly flayed alive. After finishing the final stitch, I collapsed onto the battered wooden bed and stared at the yellowed ceiling. Her trembling gaze through the glass filled my mind. 3 years. She had suffered more than I had. Alone within the predatory Bai family, she had fought her way through a path of blood, and I couldn't even hold her. Outside the door, the faintest footsteps suddenly sounded. The click of high heels on concrete was light and slow. I sprang up. I snatched the boning knife from beneath my pillow and pressed myself behind the door. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped outside. There was no knock. A deathly silence followed. A few seconds later, the footsteps began again and slowly faded into the distance. I tightened my grip on the knife and slowly pulled open the rusty metal door. The hallway was empty. Only the dim sound-activated light flickered. I lowered my head. Beneath the crack under the door, a folded sheet of white paper lay silently. I bent down and picked it up. A familiar, cool cedar scent washed over me. It was her scent. That scent. I had remembered it for 3 years and yearned for it for 3 years. My fingers trembling, I unfolded the note. Only 4 words were written on it. The strokes were sharp, yet the trembling strokes seemed to pierce straight through the paper. Don't die. Wait for me. I crushed the note tightly in my palm. Its sharp edges cut into my skin. Rat's hurried breathing came through the earpiece. Brother Fan, something terrible has happened. The old vultures Bayou left behind bribed the banquet's floor manager. They obtained a nerve toxin that had vanished from the black market. It's colorless and odorless. A single drop will stop the heart within 5 minutes. Even a forensic examination won't reveal the cause of death. They plan to use tonight's toast to kill President Bai. I shot to my feet and ripped off the blood-soaked bandage I had just sewn over my right shoulder. Where is the banquet? I clenched my back teeth. Every word tasted of blood. The top floor of the Peninsula Hotel. Security is at the highest level. Not even a fly could get inside. Rat's voice tightened. Give me a waiter's uniform. I pulled a black suitcase from beneath the bed. Brother Fan, you're insane. The wound through your right shoulder is still bleeding. You're walking straight to your death. If she dies, what's the point of me staying alive? I cut off the connection. Then I pried open the suitcase's locks and took out a realistic human skin mask. Facing the cracked mirror, I slowly pressed it over the half of my face covered in centipede-like scars. Tonight, no one will lay a finger on her. At the Peninsula Hotel, heavy snow sealed off the streets. I put on a waiter's vest one size too small and carried a silver tray. Head down, I passed through the noisy kitchen corridor. The wound in my right shoulder split wide open. Warm blood ran down my back and soaked through the gauze beneath my vest. The sticky sensation was maddening. I paid it no attention. I fixed my eyes on the half-open, gold-carved doors ahead. I pushed them open. Dazzling crystal chandeliers stabbed at my eyes. Perfume and finery filled the room. Glasses clinked amid the revelry. Susu stood at the center of the ballroom, dressed in a custom wine-red gown, like a blood-red rose blooming amid ice and snow. She held a wine glass, coldly watching the fake smiles around her. Several family elders held their glasses, hemming her in. Chairman Zhao, their leader, smiled like an old fox, the wrinkles on his face bunched together. Susu, you've carried the Bai family these past 3 years. You've been decisive and ruthless. Your uncles have seen it all. This toast tonight. Your uncles toast you tonight. Drink it, and we'll put all past grudges behind us. From now on, the Bai family will still be yours to command. I lowered the brim of my hat and silently crept closer along the wall. My eyes locked onto the floor manager behind Chairman Zhao. He was placing 2 glasses of champagne on a tray. His thumb twitched. A faint trace of white powder fell into the glass on the left. It dissolved instantly, vanishing without a trace. Bubbles still churned at the bottom of the glass, like death's invitation. Go, serve President Bai her drink. The manager grabbed my arm and shoved me forward. I took the tray and steadied myself. Step by step, I walked toward Susu. 10 steps. 5. 3. She turned around. Her gaze casually swept over me. I kept my head lowered, holding my breath, not daring to betray a hint of emotion. President Bai, please have a drink. I deliberately lowered my voice, making it rasp like a broken bellows. Chairman Zhao raised his glass with a smile, cutting off Susu's retreat. Come on, Susu. Show your uncles some respect. Susu's face remained blank. She extended her hand in a black velvet glove. Her fingertips were about to touch the rim of the poisoned glass. I jerked up my head. Before anyone could react, I seized the poisoned champagne in my left hand, tilted back my head, and drained it in one gulp. The icy liquid poured down my throat into my stomach. Carrying the chill of death, I snatched the other, clean glass from the tray and forced it into her hand. This one is clean. I looked into her eyes and uttered those 4 words. The entire room fell silent. Chairman Zhao's smile froze. The glass nearly slipped from his hand. Susu stood frozen. Her pupils suddenly contracted. She stared at my eyes, the eyes she had watched for 3 years. Her red lips trembled violently. You. Boom. It felt as though molten iron had flooded my organs. The poison struck with terrifying force. Ripping agony instantly severed my nerves. I let out a muffled groan and bit down hard on my tongue. The rusty taste of blood exploded in my mouth. I staggered half a step back, avoiding her outstretched hand. I turned and shoved through the crowd, blending into the panicked waitstaff. I retreated to the darkest corner of the ballroom, leaning against an icy Roman column, then slid to the floor, all strength gone. My vision began to blur. Cold sweat soaked my body. I clamped a hand over my mouth. Black poison blood poured wildly through my fingers, dripping onto the pristine marble floor. The sight was horrifying. On the stage, Susu smashed her wine glass to the floor. Glass shards flew everywhere. Take them down, she shouted sharply, her voice cold as tempered ice. The doors burst open under a thunderous kick. Dozens of armed bodyguards in black stormed into the ballroom. Black gun muzzles instantly pointed at everyone in the room. Chairman Zhao panicked. He stumbled backward, knocking over the champagne tower behind him. The crash of shattering glasses echoed through the ballroom. Susu, have you lost your mind? What are you trying to do? Susu gave a cold laugh. She stepped over the shattered glass, closing in 1 step at a time. What am I doing? Cleaning house. She raised her hand. A thick file slammed into Chairman Zhao's face. Papers scattered across the floor. Bribing the floor manager. Poisoning and attempted murder. Transferring the company's core assets. Uncle Zhao. Chairman Zhao collapsed to the floor, his face ashen. His whole body shook violently. And no, it wasn't me. It was Bayu's remnants. They forced me. Take them away. Cut off their hands, and throw them into the river. Susu said nothing more. The bodyguards pounced like wolves. They dragged the elders involved in the rebellion away like dead dogs. Screams echoed through the luxurious ballroom. Everyone stood silent as the grave. No one dared even breathe. She had won. The Bai family was finally purged clean. Behind the column, I watched the radiant woman on stage. A grim smile tugged at my lips. I swallowed the last mouthful of black blood rising in my throat. The mission was complete. It was time for me to go. Susu stood on stage. stage, her gaze sweeping the room like a blade. Then suddenly, her gaze stopped. Through the crowd, it landed precisely on the corner where I hid. I covered my mouth. Black blood filled the gaps between my fingers. My white waiter's shirt was stained dark red. The mask's edges were soaked with sweat and began to curl away from my skin. Her face instantly went white as paper. Lin Fan, a scream of utter anguish, tore through the ballroom's silence. She gathered up her wine-red skirt and charged off the stage like a madwoman. Her high heel snapped. She kicked off both shoes, running barefoot over the shattered glass. Blood streamed from her feet. She paid it no mind. Stop her! I roared into the tiny microphone hidden in my collar. Rat and several brothers rushed out from the shadows, blocking her path. President Bai, it's dangerous here. You can't go over there. Get out of my way. All of you, get out of my way. Like an enraged lioness, she desperately shoved at the bodyguards as tears burst from her eyes. The tears streaked her exquisite makeup. I braced myself against the Roman column. I swayed to my feet. I couldn't let her see me like this, and I couldn't die in front of her. I crawled and stumbled as I slammed open the side door. I rushed into the dark fire stairwell. Lin Fan, come back. Her desperate cries came through the crack of the door behind me. I gritted my teeth against the unbearable pain. I raced down the stairs and out of the hotel. A blizzard had descended on Jiangcheng. The freezing wind hurled ice shards against my face like knives. Blood poured from my mouth with every step, leaving a long black trail across the pristine snow. I didn't know where to go. Instinctively, I dragged my crippled left leg toward the riverbank. The neon lights on the Cross River Bridge flickered through the snowstorm. 3 years ago, on New Year's Eve, she pressed that brass key into my hand and told me to leave. 3 years later, I gave my life back to her. Now we're even. I dropped to my knees in the snow. I couldn't walk another step. The pain in my organs began to fade, replaced by bone-deep cold. My vision went completely dark. Only the howling wind remained. I collapsed into the snow, curling into a ball. So cold, colder than that night in the basement without heat. I closed my eyes, quietly waiting for death. Suddenly, the wind stopped. The snowflakes falling on my face vanished. A black umbrella opened above my head, shielding me from the raging snow. Then, a pair of trembling hands, with desperate strength, clutched my frozen body tightly. The crisp scent of cedar, mingled with a heavy stench of blood, washed over me. A scorching tear fell onto my eyelid. Found you. A hoarse voice, thick with sobs, sounded beside my ear. This time, if you die, you'll die in my arms. The smell of disinfectant stung my nose. My eyelids weighed a ton. With all my strength, I forced my eyes open. The glaring fluorescent lights made my head spin. The heart monitor shrieked in alarm beside me. An oxygen mask was strapped tightly over my face. Every breath felt like swallowing countless bloody blades. My organs felt like they were being ground up in a meat grinder. My pain receptors were nearly numb. I shifted my dry eyes. My gaze pierced the hazy blur and slowly focused. A deathly pale face rested against my cheek. It was by Susu. She had changed out of her designer black suit. She wore a wrinkled hospital gown, with thick bandages wrapped around her feet. They covered the wounds from running barefoot over glass. Crimson blood seeped through the white gauze. The sight was horrifying. She lay against the bedside, clutching my only uninjured left hand in both of hers. She pressed the back of my hand to her cheek, weeping like a child who had lost the whole world. Tears ran down her chin and struck my wrist. They were scorching, burning my skin. My fingers trembled slightly, trying to wipe away her tears. She jerked her head up from her swollen, red-rimmed eyes. A wild joy burst forth. Lin Fan. She lunged toward me, her hands hovering in midair. She wanted to hold me, but feared touching my wounds. All she could do was trace my outline in the air. Doctor, get the doctor, now. He's awake. She turned and screamed toward the door, her voice hoarse and breaking, driven wild by the miracle of survival. I clasped her fingertips. They were icy cold. Don't shout. My cracked lips moved. White mist clouded the oxygen mask. As I breathed out weakly, she immediately turned back. She cradled my bandaged face in both hands. I won't shout. She nodded desperately. Her tears fell into the hollow of my neck. Lin Fan, we won. She pressed her face to my palm, greedily soaking up my remaining warmth. That old fox, Chairman Zhao. I had his kneecap smashed. He knelt on the shattered glass in the ballroom. He kept kodoing until his face was covered in blood. I had the tendons in his hands and feet severed, then threw him into the abandoned chemical plant west of town. And by used remaining sleeper agents, I spared none of them. However they hurt you, I made them repay it 100-fold. The Bai family is clean. All of Jiangcheng is clean. No one can threaten us anymore. You don't have to hide in the shadows anymore. You don't have to be that ugly, hiding from the light anymore. We can finally be together openly. She laughed and cried, breathlessly telling me about her victory. Like a little girl showing off a treasure. I bought that villa south of town. The courtyard is filled with the southern magnolias you love. When you're better, we'll move there. From now on, you aren't allowed to go anywhere. Stay by my side. I'll take care of you forever. I looked into her tear-bright eyes, forcing out an ugly smile. I wanted to nod. I wanted to tell her, okay, I won't go anywhere. A tearing agony ripped through the wound in my right shoulder. The remaining poison ravaged my bloodstream. A metallic sweetness rose in my throat. I clenched my teeth, forcing that mouthful of black blood back down. The door flew open. Director Chen, the attending physician, led several specialists briskly into the room. Susu leapt to her feet, as if grasping a lifeline. She seized Director Chen's white coat. Director Chen, he's awake. He can talk to me. Does that mean he's out of danger? Give him a full examination, quickly. Director Chen studied the heart monitor's non-stop alarms, his face grim as iron. He lifted my eyelids and shone a flashlight inside. The beams scattered in my pupils. Director Chen sighed, slowly removed his stethoscope, and shook his head. President Bai, you should prepare for his funeral. Those 5 words struck the room like 5 bolts of lightning. Susu froze. The smile on her face instantly hardened. What did you say? She stared fixedly at Director Chen, her voice trembling uncontrollably. His old injuries from that car accident, combined with this lethal poison. Director Chen lowered his head, unable to meet her eyes. The toxin has caused disseminated intravascular coagulation. His liver and kidneys have suffered extensive necrosis. His lungs are fibrosing at an alarming rate. His heart muscle cells are dying in masses. It's like a building whose load-bearing walls are all destroyed at once. Its collapse will happen in an instant. His awakening just now was only a final surge before death. Even with our best medical team and the finest equipment, we could only keep him alive for a few more hours. Susu grabbed Director Chen by the collar and slammed him against the doorframe. Bullshit. Like a desperate lioness, she screamed hysterically. The Bai Group is worth 100 billion. I'll give you the entire Bai Group. Give him a blood transfusion. Replace his heart. Replace anything. Anything will do, as long as you can save him. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her nails drew bloody scratches across Director Chen's neck. Save him, you useless fools. I spent so much money keeping you all employed, and you can't even save one person. Believe me, I'll tear this hospital apart. Director Chen let her pull at him, his eyes reddening. President Bai, I'm sorry. The poison took effect too quickly. Even a miracle couldn't save him. You should use what little time remains to talk to him. Director Chen waved, then led several nurses, wiping away tears with their heads bowed, out of the room. He gently closed the door behind them. Only the machine's shrill alarms remained in the room. Susu slid helplessly to the floor, covering her face with both hands. A despairing, animal-like wail tore from her. Why? God, why are you doing this to me? I've suffered for 3 years. I risked my life. Is this all I get in return? She slammed her head against the marble floor, each impact making a dull thud. A bloody mark instantly appeared on her forehead. Susu. With all my strength, I called her name. I tore the oxygen mask from my face and gasped for breath. Susu jolted. She scrambled to her feet, then stumbled back to my bedside. I'm here. She hurriedly wiped the tears from her face and gripped my shoulders with both hands. Lin Fan, don't listen to his nonsense. That quack doesn't know anything. I'll take you overseas. We'll go to America or Switzerland. I'll charter a private jet. We'll leave right now. 3 years ago, you stole me out of the morgue. In that basement, 10 degrees below freezing. You kept me alive with your body heat. Today, it's my turn to save you. I have money now. Lin Fan, I have so much money. I'll buy the best miracle drug in the world. She rambled incoherently about their future, while her tears fell like beads from a broken string, pelting my hospital gown. I looked at her. My vision grew increasingly blurred, and the sounds around me drifted in and out. My time was up. I bit the tip of my tongue, using the piercing pain to force myself to stay conscious. My left hand moved inch by inch, until it finally covered her trembling hand. No need, I gasped, every word, draining the last of my strength. Susu, I'm not leaving. Outside the window, snow began to fall. The New Year's Eve snow was exactly like that night in the basement 3 years ago. I turned my head and watched the white flakes swirling outside. Susu, it's snowing. She followed my gaze. She bit her lip hard until blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Yes, it's snowing. She fought back a sob. When the snow stops, I'll take you outside to see it. We'll go to the riverbank and watch the fireworks. I shook my head. My gaze returned to her face. This face, I've looked at it for 3 years, protected you for 3 years, and could never get enough of it. The pain receded like a tide, replaced by endless cold. I felt my life force slipping away like sand in an hourglass, racing through my fingers. The images on my retinas began to fade, turning from color to black and white. Susu, come here, I called softly. She leaned down and rested her head against my chest, listening to my weakening heartbeat. With the last of my strength, I raised my uninjured left hand and gently brushed away the tears at the corner of her eye. Don't cry. You look so good in that black suit, like a true queen. She clutched my wrist tightly. tightly, her nails digging into my flesh. I don't want to be a queen. I only want you. Lin Fan, you still haven't repaid what you owe me. You are not allowed to die. If you dare to die, I'll haunt you even from beyond the grave. She repeated the words I'd said to her in the basement 3 years ago, trying to keep me with her. I smiled. The movement in my chest tugged at my wounds. My body grew lighter and lighter, like a feather about to be carried away by the wind. Miss, I returned to the way I'd addressed her 3 years ago. She suddenly looked up and stared at me in disbelief. These past 3 years, I've been running for so long. I'm exhausted, hiding in the shadows, watching you shine. Now, the road is clear. No one will ever dare bully you again. I looked into her eyes, where my scarred face was reflected. This foolish driver had finally brought Miss safely to the finish line. The heartbeat monitor slowed. Susu threw her arms around me like a madwoman and buried her face in the hollow of my neck. There is no end. Lin Fan, there is no end. You promised you'd stay with me forever. I love you. Lin Fan, I love you. Did you hear me? I love you. I heard you. That I love you was 3 years late. It sounds beautiful. I wanted to tell her that I loved her too. Loved her to the bone. Enough to give up my life for her. I parted my lips, but no sound came out. Darkness surged like a tide, completely swallowing my vision. The hand raised in midair, lost all its strength, and heavily fell. Beep. The heart monitor traced a glaring flat line. Its continuous tone pierced New Year's Eve silence. The world felt completely silent. My soul floated in midair, watching the woman in the hospital room sob until she passed out. I watched doctors and nurses rush in, watched a white sheet cover my head, and watched the heavy snow bury all of Jiangcheng. 5 years later, Jiangcheng, the bridge over the river. The river wind was still bone-chilling. Brilliant New Year's fireworks bloomed across the distant night sky. Susu, dressed all in black, stood silently in the snow. Her hair was cut even shorter, and her gaze was sharp as a blade. In Jiangcheng's business world, the mere mention of Susu's name was enough to make everyone tremble. With an iron fist, she absorbed every underworld force in Jiangcheng and propelled the Bai group to unprecedented heights. She possessed everything the world could envy: wealth, power, and status. She stood at the very top of the pyramid and became the undisputed ruler of the city. Snowflakes settled on her shoulders. She extended a hand clad in a black velvet glove and caught a snowflake. She watched it melt in her palm. Around her wrist was a faded red cord. Hanging from it was a bloodstained brass key. 3 years ago, she had traded her life to get it from me. Now, it was the only thing she had left to live for. A black, bulletproof Maybach waited by the roadside. A bodyguard held a black umbrella and stood respectfully 3 meters away, not daring to come any closer. President Bai, the wind is picking up. We should head back, the bodyguard reminded her quietly. Susu didn't turn around. She simply watched the churning river. Her tears fell silently, scorching tiny holes into the snow. Lin Fan, it's snowing, she murmured to herself. The river wind carried her voice away. You said this foolish driver had brought me to the finish line, but you're not here. What good is all this splendor in the world? What kind of finish line is that? She had conquered the world, yet she was